Hello, everyone. Hi, my name is Arnaud St. Paul, and I am currently going to present you with WHOS. Today's WHOS is about time. Time is such an important aspect of our lives, right? We are constantly, every day, of course, every day, every minute, every second, we are embracing time. Every moment is about embracing time, embracing this next minute, this next hour, this next day and year, and so on. Who hasn't had a birthday? Saying, I wish I could go back in time or I could move forward. So we have a very deep relationship with time. And I believe it is important that we ask ourselves how this relationship works. So the whole series of WHOS is about that relationship between I and something. So I and time, how does I evolves? How do I choose to be in time, for instance, for a meeting? Or how do I choose to be conscious of time? And we'll get into that later in a second. So time is a foundation of our experience. We talk about the past, the future, the now moment, all that is time. So it's another space, right? So a space like right and left, I'm here or there. Time is the same for another dimension, is the fourth dimension. Well, is it? That's the question we are going to look to answer today and see how it can inform better our conscious choices as we go along our journey between this version of me, I, and this other version of me, I, also in time, in the future, in 1 year, in 10 years, etc. How can I be the best version of myself now and continue doing so across time? These are the questions, to my knowledge, that a conscious leader could ask himself or herself and be more conscious and aware of how time impacts our decisions as well. So let's dive deeper into what it is all about. So first, let's talk about WHOS very quickly. WHOS is a weekly session to help changemakers to really support them in their work towards changing the world to their own image. And it's guided by the 30 years research I created using the Heartful method. And we are revisiting a concept of our reality that I went through, revisiting as well through the writing of my latest book, I. And with that, the whole purpose is to create more coherence, more harmony, a more symphonic you or symphonic business. Why? Because what if we could thrive and we can grow effortlessly, which is kind of seems very bizarre related to our current experience, but it is actually possible. It's just a matter of changing our own software. How can we revisit core concepts of our software so that it is more and more efficient and optimized to live in the real reality, so to speak. So after this session, you can join us in a live Q&A. You just you scan this QR code, and we can have continue the conversation after this presentation. So Buddha told us each morning we are born again. What we do today is what matters most. So here we have, it seems very common sense, obviously, but also it's a good reminder that what I am doing now, or today for that matter, is what is, nothing else. So what if we are actually framing ourselves within that scope and take our decisions from that standpoint? It actually changes quite a few things. And we're going to look at it from different angles to see how it can fit within our reality. So what is the definition of time? The definition of time is, well, let's see. According to the dictionary, the indefinite continued progress of existence and events in the past, present, future, regarded as a whole. So it's also the progress of time as affecting people and things, time or an amount of time as reckoned by a conventional standard. And it's also the personification of time, typically as an old man with a sight and an hourglass. Well, here on the right, we have a little art that we created for this event that is looking at this, hourglass, but more from a quantum physics standpoint. Why quantum physics? Because, well, we're going to see it's actually quite important. So here we have a graph that is quite complex, and I have to thank Mrs. Woodwill for that. She's a researcher, and she was looking at how time works from a mathematical standpoint. And we have a few things that are quite interesting here. One, here we have what they call the Euler identity from a mathematical standpoint, which gives us a concept of oneness and unity along with zero. And that's very important because obviously, if I look at time, it doesn't look like everything is unified and whole. However, mathematics seems to show us that there is a concept of wholeness in time as well. And the other aspect that I found quite interesting is here. Energy and mass flows the rate that time flows, forming the curvature of space-time relative to its own energy within each individual reference frame. What is interesting here is that we have, all of a sudden, the concept of frame becomes important. In other words, it is describing reality from a mathematical standpoint, from a frame perspective. There is only one frame and within which I can describe time. And then there is another frame within which I can describe time. And there is not necessarily a relationship between one frame and another. And that reminds us of something else. So what if we could have, in other words, in my experience, if you look at what is your experience now, well, it is now. Can you talk about your experience yesterday or the day before or tomorrow? Not really. These are stories and souvenirs, right? And that's the thing. You don't necessarily have them in reality. The only thing that you can really describe and be connected to right now is now. So that could mean that indeed we have several frames of reference. We have several nows and not necessarily a continuity across time, as we call time. And here we have another graph, so which shows us also very interesting things. Again, we have an infinite number of line and mirror symmetries within a light sphere. So therefore, there is a potential infinity of future possibilities and opportunities within his or her own reference frame. Each now moment holds a potential infinite of possibilities. So all of a sudden, we're turning time onto its head because it's not anymore, I have an arrow that I'm following moment after moment. Each moment is its own bucket, so to speak, or its own box, within which there is an infinite number of potentials that could be expressed in this moment. But I choose to experience this one. And we're going to go back to that in a second. So you remember these analog film strips? Well, if you don't know, the way we were projecting movies a while ago was by having a series of images, 24 images per second, that would allow me to describe one event, meaning one now moment. And because I am moving forward very quickly, all of them, meaning 24 times a second, then I create the illusion of movement and therefore time. Again, the same concept. So what that means is that this I of ours, is really selecting a specific narrow aspect of the infinite cloud of potentials to experience in this now moment. And it does the same in the next frame, in the next now moment, and then the same in the next now moment, etc. Which leads us to something very interesting. It leads us to the fact that between frames, we are completely free. What I mean by that is that frame 1 is completely free from frame 2, from frame 3, etc. Now moment 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. If I let go of my identification of what I remember from frame 1, if I'm in frame 2 in that case. And that is very, very powerful, because you could allow yourself to live different experiences, very, drastically different experiences from one frame to another, from one now moment to another. We usually don't do that because we crave and love the actual continuity of things, because it reassures us and so on. But think about it for a second. It's actually very interesting, because all of a sudden we have a potential that is enormous, if we allow it, obviously. So just to take the example of my own life, I woke up spiritually at 13, and then I went into Zen studies and psychotherapy, then became a Reiki master, then opened up to other aspects of my life, and then. So if I look at time, right, which is this arrow, and vibrational frequency here, the experience of each moment is actually expanding as I grew, as my own definition of I was growing. In other words, I has the potential of being much more than what it recognized at first in a prior now moment. The question is, do we want to grow? Do we want to expand? And do we want to experience much more than what we are experiencing in this now moment? This is a conscious leader question, I guess. So, being in the now, what does that mean? Well, if I have a past, if I have a future, right, within the time frame of time, then most of the time I'm identifying to that past or that future. That's where 90% of the people have their own energy, their own attention is paying it to the past or to the future. They're losing themselves in that. And because it's so easy to do so, because it is, we're looking to ways of grasping, of feeling safe. And because we know this past, or we kind of want to know the future, it's easier to connect with that. But the real magic is now, always. It is in this experience now of me, right? Of I. So what can we do to choose now? And frankly, it's an amazing experience, if you allow yourself to experience it, obviously. So be in the now, yes, of course. So now we're going to go through a few minutes meditation around a poem that I wrote on time. And it's coming from my book, I is Born, that you can find on tapwhat.com/I on Amazon. And so please close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Another one. And let's start. Crawling away from its womb, I is born. Segregated self, moment to moment, I gets torn off itself. As the father of all duality, mother of all steps, time brings solace to thy journey towards I. From naught to infinite, from love to love, such are the steps to nirvana. Blessed are the moments, setting apart the experience of the whole, so that I can find the epitome of its dreams. Now you can open your eyes again. So I want to go through this poem again because it will help us understand better what we just saw. Crawling away from its womb, I is born. So this is the moment where we actually are born, physically speaking. And it is also the moment where we start the wheel of time. And the way we're doing that is moment after moment where we segregate ourselves. In other words, we live pieces of ourselves in this past or in that past. And we lose gradually this presence of ours on this now moment. I gets torn off itself, and the bucket of now becomes more and more empty, which means that we are not there anymore for serving the people we are with in this moment. Do we want to continue doing that? As the father of all duality, mother of all steps, you see here times is shown as duality. There is a contrast. It shows, and time allows the contrast to happen. The same way it allows the steps to happen as well. In other words, instead of living everything at the same time, now moment, we are able to separate them, separate experiences, which is amazing. It's a beautiful dance. Now, maybe we can go from one to the other as well. We could have a moment where we experience everything and then another moment where we experience very little. So there is a kind of a breathing experience there also that can happen. Time brings solace to thy journey towards I. What you and I are doing every single moment is to get towards ourselves. And we start from zero and we want to go to the infinite, to the moon. We are looking at experiencing love from a human standpoint and love from a divine standpoint. Each little step helps us to get where we live, where we believe we should be. And each moment is a capacity for each of us to actually experience a little angle, a different angle of the same thing. So each moment of time is me experiencing myself from a new angle. How can I apply that in my day-to-day life? This opens up an amazing possibility because this is how you can really find yourself and be present to yourself more and more. So please consider this. Please share on LinkedIn with your comments and share this presentation. And if you are interested by the book, please go to tapwhat.com/I. And more importantly, join us now to this live Q&A that is going to start now. And I hope that we can find you very soon in one of the next sessions. Bye for now.